Alright, so it's January 26th. I thought I'd do a little update on my project here. This Chevy Cummins. And so all I've been doing is just working on the small details right now. I still have to do the transfer case and the transfer case cross mover, is what I mean to say. Show what I've been working on. Oh, hold up. Yeah. Sponsored by Captain Morgan. Alright, so most people don't go this far with this. They don't use the Dodge shroud and the Dodge radiator and the Dodge intercooler. But if you do this, it's not easy. The one and only thing that I have not modified to make this fit is this hose right here. Everything else I had to modify. And this epoxy right here is because this end tank has a little tiny crack in it. It just weeps coolant. In fact, I was going to replace the radiator, but I figured I might as well just see if I can make it fit. If I can't fix that, if it keeps leaking, I'll just replace it at some point in the future. Anyway, let me see if I can show a little more about what it takes to make this fit. And I need to grab a light, which is behind me somewhere. Alright. So, it's tough to show that. Anyway, I cut this out. I really hacked the core support heavily to make this fit. But it came out pretty clean. I welded in, I was going to say sections of angle iron, but they aren't angle iron. They are, I took a piece of square stock and cut it diagonally and welded the sections in right here. So this whole thing is nice inside there. It's all smooth and reinforced. And this little weld you see right here is just the way I reinforced. Gotta grab the light again. Reinforce the battery tray. See that? The reason I put that there and did the same on the other side is look how much I had to hack out to get that intercooler tubing to fit. See how normally there are 3 bolts. See those 2 right there? Normally there's another one to the right of that body mount. And since the battery tray is above that, when you cut all that sheet metal out of there, it makes it a lot more flexible. So I just tied that into the core support. Here you can also see the mounts for the bottom of the radiator. You see that piece of rubber right there? So what I did with the radiator, I didn't want to do this at first, but I thought about it and realized that it actually isn't that bad. See these little straps here? The bottom of the radiator is using the factory Dodge mounts, and normally you do not want to rigidly mount anything like radiator or intercooler to your vehicle. You don't want to rigidly mount it because you get flex, your core support flexes, and you don't want to break it. But with these mounts, the way that is, it does have some, it can move side to side, like it can pivot, and it's flexible, so it's not extremely hard. But I wouldn't have done this if I hadn't triangulated core support and made it probably 2 or 3 times as strong as it was in the factory. Because when I cut something up, I hack the hell out of it. I'm not just gonna leave it like that. I gotta come back and reinforce it. So I don't know if I think I showed that in one of my previous videos. So I'm gonna try to show a little more about that right now. So, oh, and then that fan turned on. You can probably hear that. Pretty loud in here in the shop. Okay. Oh, I don't want to line the floor in this jacket. Alright, let's see if I can show this stuff here. Okay, so that's the bottom of that piece that I welded in. And Yeah, I'm not going to be able to show it, but anyway, I triangulated that whole piece with 2 sections of square stock, pretty small, like 3/4 inch square stock. I don't know what the wall thickness is, but it makes the whole piece considerably stronger. And I wasn't happy until I did that, because when you hack the core support up to fit the intercooler, you can come on the side of the truck and just push that fender well, or push the fender, I mean, and the whole core support will move like a parallelogram from a rectangle. Does that make sense? Now, when you do this, right here, you'll see that when you put the Dodge radiator or intercooler in, I mean, you won't have enough clearance for your parking lights. I don't know what I'm going to do with that yet. I think I'm going to run some kind of LEDs or something. But that's, like I said before, I mean, there isn't a single component, a single part of this that you don't have to modify, except for that upper radiator hose. That's the only thing that fits. But yeah, like I said in the video where I took the Chevy apart, I'm doing my best to keep this clean. And what I mean by clean is not a lot of clutter, not a lot of wiring and hoses and just crap everywhere. So I have not put any of the wiring harness in a loom yet, because I don't know if it's all going to work. I might have to get in there and open it up a little bit. But I do have it all pretty clean. You can see that stuff is marked out. It's all taped up. It is pretty clean. And so right here, that's my heater grid. You need that in South Dakota. So now I rigged that up. I just did this today, not the whole thing, but these are the relays from the Dodge. If you guys don't know how the heater grid works, or you never thought about it because you live in a warm climate, it's just an electrical resistance heater. It's right here. It's in line with the intake track that warms up the air, and it's controlled by the computer in the Dodge, I believe. It's on some kind of timer based on how cold it is outside. So what I did here, I used the Dodge relays, and I took an ignition source wire to one side of the relay, and then I ran a couple wires from those into the cab. And you guys might not like this. Let's see if I can make this show up. But these are momentary switches, like what you'd find in a microwave. They are triggered by the door in the microwave. And these are some of the best switches you can get for stuff like this. People use them to trigger nitrous, etc. And some people might not like how I have them just sort of chilling there. I really don't care. To me, I look at something like this like it's style. To me, that's just style. The function, I mean, everything's heat shrink tubing and solder. There isn't a single crimp joint on this whole truck. Everything I do with electrical is I'm absolutely perfectionistic about it. So yeah, I mean, I could have a couple switches mounted, like push button switches mounted here, but I figured, I mean, like I said, it's just style. I really don't care. I like this style. If you don't like it, do your own thing, whatever. But so that's how I set that up. One thing I was really annoyed by, once I got the battery trees and I got the radiator in here, I quickly realized that the factory Chevy battery will not fit. It hits the side of this hose. Total fail. So I got to get a little bit smaller battery. And another thing I totally failed at doing here was the intake to the turbo. On this side, I took the Dodge box and I cut the bottom off of it, and I weld these 4 little pieces up from the fender well. I had it all in here, it was looking good, and then I went to close the hood, and that right there comes down here, and it went right into that box, and I was so angry about that. I took a hammer and smashed the box, and I haven't been that pissed off. I can't remember how long. I don't even know how long, but Anyway, so I just hacked that out and I left these little stubs to remind myself. I'll probably get rid of them later, but I left them in there for now to kind of remind myself, like, you gotta think stuff through. Don't just do something quickly. You gotta think about how it's all gonna work, because every little thing you do affects every other little thing. It's all connected. I mean, to me, it's pretty amazing that when I set this motor in here, that it actually worked with the factory shroud and the factory fan and the factory radiator and the factory intercooler from the Dodge. I mean, it's just, all it takes is a little bit of a dimensional difference and none of that stuff's gonna work. So, but I mean, I did have to shorten intercooler tubing, and it was not easy to get any of this stuff to fit. So, one thing you guys might find kind of interesting though, and I've been sort of noticing as I've been working on this, is you know, you hear some people are like, oh, I hate Fords or I hate Chevys, or people are talking shit about one particular brand of vehicles, but they don't really have any kind of technical knowledge. One thing I've really been noticing that I find kind of interesting is that every little component on the Dodge is like bigger and more heavy duty than on the Chevy. Every little thing. What I mean by that, check this out. Here's your overflow hose, or your expansion tank hose, whatever you want to call it. On the Chevy, look at that. It doesn't fit on the Dodge radiator. It's too small, right? Just like the NV4500 on the Dodge has a bigger input shaft than on the Chevy. Just like the Dodge radiator is bigger, wider, taller than the Chevy. Every little thing. Except for the fuel lines. That's what I take that back. The fuel lines are actually bigger on the Chevy, which is kind of weird. At least maybe a tiny bit bigger. That's something else I should probably show how I did that, but I don't want to. Well, maybe I could get out there and show that. Let's see. So this being a gas truck, it has a fuel filter up here in the frame rail. Let me crawl under here. Try not to hit my jacket against anything dirty as I'm crawling in this truck. I should just pick it up on the lift, but alright, hang on here. Alright, so that is where the original fuel filter was. So I just cut the lines and ran this special tubing up there. This is pretty nice tubing here. It's not gonna degrade or leak or anything, and it has that liner inside of it. But oh yeah, now that I'm under here, it makes me think of a couple more things I'm trying to figure out. If anyone watching this video, if you guys know how to solve these problems, let me know, because I have not figured this out yet. Here, right here, that's the connector for the Chevy speed sensor, and the Dodge one. Oh shit. Okay. I am now crawling on my back in a nice jacket. This is not cool. There's the Dodge speed sensor. Let me zoom in on that. That has 3 wires, and it puts out a completely different type of signal. Another couple things I have not figured out yet are the tach, and I need to get some kind of different throttle cable too, I guess. It's so close to fitting with the Chevy one, but it just doesn't quite fit. So, and then the alternator, that is, that's done, and that should be good. I had a guy, see okay, so the factory Dodge alternator, they have, they're controlled by the computer, the Dodge computer. And that's kind of annoying. The computer fails, alternator doesn't put out power, or excuse me, if that particular part of the computer fails, you gotta buy a whole new computer, whatever. It's not cool. So a lot of guys run external regulators. I didn't want to do that. So what I did is I had a guy swap this out for a Chevy style regulator. So internal, all I did was just all I gotta do is connect it like factory. Here's a wire that goes to the factory Chevy alternator, and now for all intents and purposes, it is a Chevy alternator. So, assuming it works properly, which I bet it will, but that's pretty cool. That solved that problem. Another thing here, let me see if I can show this. If you look at the Chevy frame there, all right? See how there's no room? That's where the Dodge AC compressor. I don't know why the frame is like this. It's really stupid how it's so fat in the front right here. It's so thin back here, and then it just gets fat right here. But that's where the Dodge compressor, AC compressor, goes. And so obviously I couldn't run that. So what I did, I just got a belt for the Dodge application without the AC compressor, and it actually fits. It actually fit. I was like, wow, that's too easy, but it works. And the only thing is that what's kind of weird is that the rib side of the belt runs against the smooth side of the tensioner pulley. Everyone says I won't have a problem with that, and I don't think I will either. So that's one problem solved right there. I did do the killer dowel pin fix also. I had to pull the whole front cover off and blah blah. If you have a Cummins, you know what I'm talking about. You have to do that. You don't want that pin to fall out and destroy your entire motor. That would not be cool. So here's the other little reinforcement I did on this battery tray here. Same thing. Check out the intercooler tubing here. Me personally, I think that looks kind of cool. Driving down the road, people see that, they're like, they know that you're not playing around. You see this big ass tube right here. That truck sure didn't come like that. But anyway, now that I'm here, I should probably show a couple more things I gotta mess with. Shock mounts. I gotta move the shocks upward because I don't have enough compression travel, and that's annoying because it's gonna hit the back of that. So I don't know what I'm gonna do with that yet. And then my brake line here, since the brake line was tied to the factory crossmember, which I hacked out, I had to cut that out for clearance. You can see the brake line just hanging there. I gotta redo that. I'm gonna make it go along with frame rails and up here by my crossmember that I added in. See that? And I might add another crossmember here under the motor anyway, just so I can have a nice surface to mount my bump stops to, because I don't have any bump stops. And if you go off-road and you hit bumps, you really should have bump stops so you don't bottom out your shocks. Because that's how I tore this bushing. See that? Tore that bushing on that shock by bottoming out. And you don't want to do that. I never did that with, obviously I haven't, yeah, I just did that with a 350 in here. I sure as hell wouldn't be bottoming out the suspension with an 1,100 pound Cummins. That'd be horrible. Sorry for how long this video is getting, but yeah, I didn't plan this at all and what to say or anything. I'm just doing this on the fly. But here's another thing I gotta figure out how to do is my clutch setup, my clutch master cylinder. This is a pain in the ass. I am not very happy about having to deal with this. The Dodge thing clicks into a hole of a certain shape and you rotate it and it clicks in place. And I don't have that in my firewall. I just cut a hole in there, the Chevy size hole, which is round. So I'm gonna try to make a plate that the Dodge master cylinder clicks into. Or you put it in, you turn it like a certain number of degrees to the right, it just locks in place. That's not gonna be easy to do. I'm gonna have to see if I can do that with a plasma cutter or I don't even know. That's not gonna be fun. If you can't use this, according to everything I've read, the Chevy master cylinder is a smaller diameter, so you don't get the full travel on the slave cylinder if you use it with the Dodge slave cylinder. Which is unfortunate. That's what I mean. See what I'm saying? Like every little thing is bigger on the Dodge. The master and the slave are both bigger on the Dodge. So, and as far as the throttle connection, or it's kind of weird to call it a throttle because it's not a throttle, it's just the injection pump. No throttle in a diesel engine. But I don't like the factory Dodge setup at all. I do not like that. And I don't know, I might build something different. I'm not sure yet. The Chevy cable is close to fitting, but not close enough. So, all right. Anyway, next time I post up a video, I'm gonna have the transfer case in with a new cross member. I'm gonna have the drive shafts in, and the truck's gonna be, may not be drivable, but it's gonna be really close. So, all right, thanks for watching.